In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, we will be talking about listener email. It's a principle called standing outside the frame. We'll be right back. Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, the cute diggity dog in the Moran family studio with my lovely wife, Jeannie. Jeannie, say whatever you want to say.
What's up?
What's up to everybody, all of you around the world? Welcome back to this particular episode. We have something that's pretty cool today that we call standing outside the frame. And what we do is we'll take listener email, we will read it, and it will be like a Jack and Jill theme. We won't say the man or the woman's name, and then we will talk about it openly. And this is where you share some things you're going through, and then Jeannie and I will have an open dialogue. We'll do our best to, give you our perspective based on our experience, and none of these points of view are meant to treat or cure any illness. We're not doctors. We're not professionals. This is advice and entertainment purposes only. I don't know if we have to say that or do that, but I'm putting it out there. Anyway, before we get into this particular episode, I want to remind you that you can like and share this program, share it with somebody you know. Also, don't forget to email us, Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com. And be sure to check out all the swag that your heart desires at quincymoran.com/apparel, where you'll get Man vs. Marriage. You will get the Quincy Moran line. You will get the Family Famous line and much, much more. And then the last thing is, before we get started, you might be asking yourself if you belong here. Now, if you are in the watching the video episode of this, you'll see two people here that approximately 15 years ago were struggling in their relationship. And we were taking all that life had to give us. And life was absolutely living us, and we were not living it. And it was based on the circumstances we found ourselves in, having 8 kids, having diagnosis of autism, having sexual abuse happen by babysitters to our kids, financial duress, medical issues out the wazoo, having to deal with brain surgeries for our daughters who have bilateral VP shunts. And the list goes on and on. I mean, we were to the point where, thank God for food banks at churches. We were eating out of those food banks and just trying to survive. If you are new to the program, we had a boy, and then we had triplet girls. We had another girl. We had twin girls, and then one more girl to finish it off. And so we had multiple births, health issues, just so many things going on. Not to give you a sob story, but to say that we found ourselves in a spot where our marriage was not what we had signed up for, whether it was life or circumstances or a product of our choices. It wasn't what we wanted. And so we had a decision to make, which is, stay together, be roommates, figure it out until the kids were raised, or reinvest in our life and our marriage and get it back on the pathway to becoming what we wanted it to be. And so, honey, what did we do?
We got help.
We got help. That's right. And, a number of years later, which we're on year number 6 of doing this podcast, after about 10 years, it was like, hey, I've got to go and tell people about this. So we started this podcast. So if there's anything there you can relate to, maybe there's no connection in your sex life, or you're not having sex as much as you anticipated you would. Maybe there's a lack of intimacy, a lack of connection, a lack of conversation, a lack of future or vision in your relationship, and you can't really put your finger on why that is. Well, that you belong here, and we understand where you're coming from. And if Jeannie and I can make it, then we believe I believe, I'll let you speak for yourself. If you're willing to put in the work and have an open heart and exercise grace and forgiveness, then you can do it. Made me think of the water boy. You can do it. Now, this, I'm just going to be completely candid with the audience. Jeannie and I did a check-in before this. And so we may not look as excited as we normally do to do a podcast because we had a challenging conversation, but we're here to help you anyway. So, honey, kudos to you. And kudos to me too for doing it anyway. We could just go on our merry way and not do it. But anything you want to say about what we're getting ready to get into?
No, just get into the email and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first. Okay. So hey, we have technology now that is going to help us put this up there. Definitely not going to give this listener's email out, but you see there's a Go Utes and a Roll Tide. And I think I may have gotten them out of order somehow. So we're going to keep on working here. Let's see what we got, Q Dog. Let's see. I think this might be it. Yes, this is number one. That's so weird that anyway, let's just do this. So it says, good afternoon. I never actually emailed you, like I said. Just to give you a little bit of context, this is a longtime listener, and we have each other's phone numbers, so we text back and forth now from time to time. And so that's what he's referring to here. Life got a little crazy, and my head was just in other places, working through it all. So I kind of wanted to give an update on how things are going. I still listen to the show. That's a bonus. I'm still very much willing to do one of your panel interviews, which we've done some of those, and I can't wait to have this listener in particular on there. Life has been challenging lately, the whole year, even the last 9 months, both financially and with our marriage. We still have our issues, but have refused to give up. I think that's probably every marriage. Our marriage has been rocky again, but we're still trying new things to fix the same old problems. We've started something new just recently that that's been very eye-opening for me so far. We are reading Fight Right by John Gottman. I've never heard of that book, but it's something I'm interested in after seeing this email. It has helped me figure out that we do not know how to work through conflict, opinions, parenting styles, conflicts and priorities, etc. I'm still reading to try and figure out how to make some repairs to fix that issue. Any advice you may have regarding this would be huge. Hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. So that's the first email to me. And then let me see. Okay, yeah. So this is the next one here. Bear with me, everybody, please. Roll Tide. Great to hear from you. No hard feelings on my side, brother. Thank you for continuing to listen to the show. How can we help you? We are happy to get on a call again. Read your email anonymously and help you through the rough times again, etc. Whatever we can do to support. I would love to have you on the panel. Matter of fact, I want to have you on with Dr. John DeBach so we can talk about some of your challenges during the show. Asking you first. Haven't asked him yet, although he has agreed to do the panel or whatever, etc. Now, we're going to have Dr. John DeBach on with a few guys, so whoever he's on is not necessarily going to be this particular guy. We're going to have him on with a few people. The main mission is to remain committed and keep your intentions and motivations pure. Certainly love your family, and we are rooting for you all. Oh, and I owe you a shirt. Things went wacko with my previous printer. I'll put an offer code together so you can go. All my best to you and your family. There's some business there. I decided to do this last minute, so it's not perfect, but I wanted to throw it out there anyway. So let's see what this one. And then we're going to get into, okay, this might be the final. Yeah, this is the next email. So it says, any support advice would be awesome. Give me some time and I'll write an email and the best I can. I can and would love to see what you and Jeannie have to say. I also massively respect Jeannie. I hope that's spelled correctly. Jeannie's perspective. It's always awesome to hear the different perspectives. I think that's one thing that's great about our program is even, when you and I don't agree on things, we can still give our perspective to see what it is. So I think it helps. We do agree a lot on the show, but there are times where we don't. And so here we go. This is where we get into the meat of the episode. My wife and me have been 2 steps forward, 1 step back, then 3 steps forward and 5 steps back, and so on. Not really making progress or getting worse, in my opinion. Something new we have been trying that I feel is working so far is we are reading Fight Right by John Gottman. We both have our own copy. We read to a certain point, highlight things, and then take notes, etc. Then stop and discuss it. We try to make it a judgment-free zone, air our feelings out, and talking about the notes we took and points we highlighted. So far, the biggest thing I've learned is I know the issues, the problems, the things that have that's caused resentment to build and dig that knife in deeper, but I can't figure out how to fix. I don't know what tools to use and how to use them. For a mechanic, heavy duty diesel brained guy like me, a good analogy would be that's what a good analogy would be. Being told to go rebuild that engine and bore the liners, very long and difficult and complicated job that takes a lot of training and experience and know-how. Well, it's like tackling that job with no training, no experience, and no tools, let alone training how to use those tools. So we're trying, but it feels like we're trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. We keep trying the same thing over and over, sometimes with little tweaks, but ultimately the same thing. Well, that causes more and more resentment because it makes one another feel. Let's go to the next one. My apologies. Like the other doesn't care or isn't trying. When in all reality, that couldn't be further from the truth. No matter how many ways you spin that round peg, it's never going into the square hole. I try to show her uh, the how important, valued, and how loved her and the family are, but it never sticks because I can't seem to build momentum and consistency.
Sorry.
Or at least in her eyes. For one good deed, it seems to go out the window with 3 bad or, a fight causing deeds. I feel she has that filter of resentment that we can't get past because the only thing I know how to do is turn the round peg, aka trying to fix the problem. Well, that causes a whole other problem itself. I don't care. I don't try. I don't value her and the girls. We fight, and I say just enough to get her to stop being mad, then pretend it never happened and brush it under the rug. Again, that couldn't be further from the truth. I feel or have been pushed to the point that I feel she's always justified and right for being mad or frustrated with me. I feel it's been all my fault and the wrongdoings that caused these voids between us and dug us into this hole. No matter how fast or much dirt I bail out, I can't keep going to the next one for those on audio. Um, I can't keep enough from falling back in to get and stay ahead. Again, thank you for your help and patience. It's been huge, uh, at least to keep things together. I just need to learn how to use the tools that you have given me. And as always, go Utes. Oh, geez, I can't believe I said that out loud. I said that for you, Jack.
Hmm.
If you're another particular fan, you're not going to get that fight out of me, but we will for here. So you heard the story.
Mm-hmm.
You heard the email back and forth. Since you're a woman and I'm not, I'm going to open the floor to you and see what thoughts you have. I've got some thoughts as well that I'll share. And then let's see what we can refresh him on as far as the tools that come to mind to be able to help him.
Well, my questions are for her, not for him, which
Okay.
is difficult because she's not participating. But he doesn't value her or the kids, he doesn't care, he doesn't this, he doesn't that, then what does that look like? What is he not doing that makes it that he doesn't care, that he doesn't value, that he's not doing? Because if he knew what the mark was, I'm pretty sure he could hit it. But if he's aiming for something and you're not even on the same board, he's already fighting a losing battle.
So number one, you're saying for each of those things, which is, can you repeat those?
She said he doesn't value her or the kids, he doesn't respect her, and he only does just enough to get by, but then he goes back and does whatever it is again. But what does that look like?
And says just enough. I'm recalling that part of the email. I just want to be able to write it down.
No, you're fine. I mean, you could put a team on the field and you can tell them the end zone is that way. But if you don't tell them how to get there, if you don't tell them what needs to happen to get there, you're just trusting a bunch of guys with a ball to make their own decisions. That ain't smart.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is if you're going to call the play but you only tell one player, then what's the rest of the team supposed to do?
You have to tell him if he's missing the mark that many times in a row and it's a consistent thing where she is constantly telling him, you're not, but he feels like he is, somebody's looking at the wrong playbook or somebody's not telling anybody what the actual play is.
Okay, Jack. So the first thing we're going to do here, this is just from Jeannie's perspective as she's reading it. You heard that. You've talked to us a few times, so you know where our heart is coming from. And if it sounds like at any point we're being hard on each other or we're being hard on Jack or Jill, we're not. We're just talking this out. It's an open dialogue.
He knows me. He's used to my gruffness. He's okay.
Yeah, I'm just talking about for the people who may be new to the program. But sometimes you got to say hard things.
Well, I need answers because this couple's been dealing with stuff for quite a while. We've worked with him before, and if you're doing the things that she's asked you to do and you're doing them on a consistent basis and you're intentionally doing them, it can't always be your fault. If you're not hitting the mark, but you are doing everything that you guys have said, this, and this need to be done, and this is what I will feel about it, and you're doing it, and she's still coming back with, no. Okay, somebody moved your target, dude.
Yeah, so here's my thought about this is that there is lingering resentment and a lack of trust somewhere in there.
There is someone who is refusing to forgive. It's not just resentment. She is refusing to forgive for something.
Well, if you resent somebody though, you can't forgive them.
Yes and no. It depends on what she resents him for. Is he doing the same thing that caused the resentment? Is that why she's struggling with it? Or is the resentment the underlying and then everything else he does from that point on just becomes even more emphasized, so now she can't forgive those either? There's a difference. And the reason I can say that is because I might be upset about something that happened years ago. And that might be something that I'm struggling with forgiving you for. But if you're doing new things, little things, and those things start becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm still not willing to forgive, even though you're doing everything I've asked you to do to wipe it clean, and I'm still not forgiving you, the resentment is the underlying, but the unforgiveness is her issue, not his.
No, I understand that. And these would be both in her court on the premise that Jack is being intentional and doing the things that she is asking to make her feel valued. And I think that's one critical point is what exactly does that look like? So Jack, if you would, just as an exercise, and maybe this is an exercise for everybody, grab a piece of paper or, whatever you use to write, and then write 1, 2, 3, and write the 3 things that you believe your wife has told you that makes her feel valuable. If you can't name them, that's going to be a problem for you.
Mm.
If you can name them, And then I don't want you to justify yourself out of any guilt. Like what I'm saying is if you know what they are, walk through what you are doing in order to show her she's valuable, because there's something there. So if you don't know what that is, that's a problem. If you do know what it is, what are you doing to show that to her?
Mm-hmm.
And then are you asking her for feedback to say, is this making you feel X, Y, and Z? So I need that from you. And then I also need the same thing for the girls. What is it? I mean, this is from her perspective, that you're not showing her that you value the girls. But what do the girls think? How do the
Mm-hmm.
girls feel? What makes the girls feel valuable in their words?
See, I have an issue in this particular scenario because, and I'm not saying this is her, but we have seen it in other Jack and Jill situations where um, the wife will know that if I continue to tell you you're not hitting the mark or you're not doing it right, it's a form of manipulation because they're doing everything they can. They're putting in the effort, they're calling you, they're doing all the exercises, they're doing the stuff that they're supposed to be doing, but yet she's still coming back unsatisfied. And to me, for some people, it's a manipulation tool. Because if I can make you feel like you're not doing it and your goal is to do it and get it right, I'm just going to keep playing strings, man. I'm going to get everything out of this and I'm going to keep playing strings. And there are people like that. We have another Jack and Jill. Man, it's a good thing I can't reach to the phone sometimes. That's all I can say. But it's one of those situations where he may not see that. Now, I don't know if that's the situation here. I would say it's definitely her resentment that she's not letting go. And that is not his responsibility, nor is it his to take on. You've apologized. We went through this before, so we know where the resentment sits. We know what he did. We know why he did it. We know that he's apologized for it. It's supposed to be moved on. Apparently, it's not. That's not a Jack problem. That's a Jill problem.
Yeah.
If you've done everything you said you would do, you've apologized, and you've squashed it, and her excuse is, well, you just act like nothing ever happened. Yeah, because we squashed it. It's not supposed to come up like something happened. We squashed it.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't squash it, that's a you problem. And for me, I'm a little testy on that just because we've been dealing with them off and on for a while, and it irritates me that I know he's putting in the work. I know he is. But on the flip side, there's also, what is she doing for you? Because
I think
we never get that side.
I think that's a good point. Jack, we're going to pause this discussion about your situation specifically and just talk a little openly about that. Because I do catch the theme that we have guys that come to this program, they're asking for help. I don't know if they're doing the work on the other side or they're just telling me they are. I believe, along with you, this particular Jack is doing the work because
he checks in often. So I assume and I trust that he's really doing it because he does check in often. He does ask you questions about things that come up. They wouldn't do that if they're not genuinely trying to do something.
Yeah. And so and I'm not, like I say, we're paused on this specific relationship, but it's odd to me because there's this idea out there that with women in particular, and maybe it's just our listeners, where it seems like the guy has to act as a servant. I don't know if it's to make up for, you can say it better than me because you've kind of pushed back on me a little bit, but it's like the guy, no matter what the guy does, for some reason, it's never good enough. And what is the bottom of that? Like,
that's entitlement. That's all that is. That is, so for me, it's difficult because I don't expect you to go above and beyond for me if I'm not doing it for you. If I'm not putting it in, you aren't either. And that's fair. But some of these guys that we've talked to, it's like, um, I'll use a different Jack, for example. They're going through financial issues. He's part of the cause for the financial issues. He owns that. He's doing his part, taking on extra income, extra jobs, trying to make up for, and he's adjusted the budget so that he could put the money back, basically. So a special day comes along. It's to celebrate her, an anniversary or Mother's Day, something to that effect. He does what he can, what he believes is a good present. And he, bought her, I believe it was a spa day, hair treatment, some things of that nature that are not cheap. Number one. Number two, it's meant to be relaxing. Go treat yourself. Go do something nice for yourself. I'm giving you the day off. I'm going to take the kids. You go do this. And because he didn't do a grand gesture for other people to see, or he didn't send it to work or send it where the family would see, or whatever it was, because it wasn't observed by others, she valued it as shit. That's not what I wanted. I wanted a grand gesture. I want everybody to see. That's a you issue. That is a you issue. Because, first of all, he doesn't have that money. He did something to scrounge that money up, knowing that you guys don't have it. That, to me, if that was you doing something for me, as much as I don't care about spa day type stuff, it's not top priority on my list. I would have appreciated the fact that I knew how hard you worked to pay for that, and to think of me in that respect, to give me a day to go take care of myself and just relax. That would have been huge for me. Why? Because your heart was in it. Whether or not it was the perfect gift or it was something that I would have done for myself doesn't matter, because I know what it took for you to do that. Now, does it have to be something done in front of everybody? I am not that person. I don't like everybody to see what's going on when I'm getting a gift. I don't want it to be a public spectacle. If you're that person and you're just now getting pissed off about it, and it's 6 years, 8 years into the marriage, dude, why was this not made public knowledge from day one when y'all were dating? Like, why was this not something that you guys either caught on to or discussed? Because if she got to be bougie, you should know these things. That's, I mean, we know someone like that, where the more money you spend, the bigger the present, the happier she is. Great. But at the same time, if you don't make the same kind of money that she makes, she's not happy. These are the kind of things I don't understand. So when guys tell us they're doing all of these things and they're putting their heart into it and they're really trying to do something that would make you feel special, of course he thought buying her a spa day was going to make her feel special. I'm trying to pamper you with something. I'm trying to make you feel pretty. I know that this treatment that you get done takes a long time, and I know it's expensive for you to do it yourself. It takes a long time. I'm going to pay to have somebody do it for you, and all you have to do is relax. I don't see the issue. And I know there's probably guys on the other side of this thing going, neither do I, because they think the same way. The hard part for me is this is where your needs come in, and that hard talk that we have to have at the beginning that says, what do you need? And what does it look like? Because clearly in one Jack and Jill situation, hers is gifts, but it is acts of service with a gift. Like, she wants everybody to know what's happening and what you're doing and why you're doing, because she wants other people to value her. That's not about how you value her. That's about how somebody else sees her. And that to me is okay. I'm just going to be plain. I would not be in that relationship. For me, I don't deal with those type of people well. If I got to do something to impress your people and not you, bye.
Yeah, and the tough thing is that that's a culture in another country. So that's something that, while I'm sure that's present here in America in
We just have
spades.
a different word for it because it ain't culture.
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is that's that's coming from another culture outside of the United States. We view that as one way here in the U.S. May not necessarily be the same there. But
But it was for him, if you think about it, because in the conversation, that was his frustration. Why do I have to do something for these other people when all this time you're telling me I don't value you, I don't see respect you, I don't do these things for you. So I did something that I felt was of a value to you, that showed you that I cared about the things that you cared about. It was a passing conversation where she said she needed to do XYZ, and he went and bought her the gift so she could go do XYZ. He listened. He proved that he listened. So while I understand what you're saying about the culture thing, he had the same take that we had on it. Was why was this wrong? Because
yeah,
I listened, I solved a problem, I scrounged and did some extra things, which means he did a sacrifice for himself somewhere financially to make that happen. And he put in the effort. All of those things should have been, if nothing else, appreciated.
yeah,
And it wasn't. He was cut to size from the get go. I understand the cultural difference, but at the same time, he was looking at it the same respect we were of, I don't understand. Show me what it is that you mean then. Show me what I did wrong, because I thought by hitting these four main points that you complain about, I had done a good thing. And then it got tossed back. That doesn't make sense. And I understand his confusion, because it doesn't make sense to me either.
yeah. And I wonder, just kind of getting back into this situation, because that I've just seen a number of, and we're only getting one side. I like to get both sides, but sometimes wives are just not. They don't want to come and be a part of the discussion, which is unfortunate and could be telling, um, to a degree. It could be telling. I'm just thinking about it now. If they don't want to come and talk about it, um,
Well, it depends on how they approach it too, because it might be another man telling them about their marriage. They may not know that I'm in the picture.
yeah. Well, some of these couples have actually listened to the podcast a little bit, so they do know that you're there.
Oh, well, then that could be my explicit. Sorry.
That could be a problem with them not wanting to hear that from you. But as we kind of reel it back in, here's something that comes to me as we're discussing this. My question is, are you still paying for the past? Because it sounds to me, if everything lines up or if it's close, she's you still paying for something that was done in the past. Now, it could be done by you or it could be done by someone else. And so if I break that down a little bit further, it's important that you and your wife both come to terms with reality. In the reality I'm talking about is, what what have you done? What have we done to each other that we need to reconcile? And then, what did you bring into this relationship that I cannot reconcile for you? What baggage did you bring in? Because if there's unresolved baggage in your relationship, that's one thing. If there's unresolved baggage that you brought into the relationship, that's a situation where, say she's forgiven Jack for what he's done and Jack has forgiven Jill. But if Jack does something that's familiar to the baggage, now it's like it goes back to, this is the way it always goes, which this may not be Jack's stuff. This could be stuff from her past. We dealt with that because we were resolving our issues. And I remember Coach Rita, talking us through something. And I was like, you know, I think it might have been about accountability. And I said something to you, and you were like, well, my dad always this. And Coach Rita was like, Jeannie, Quincy's not your dad, but you are putting him in that seat and making him guilty for the things your dad did. And that's not fair to him. So you have to be able to divide that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, his wife, Jack's wife, is in some form of counseling of some sort. So I really believe that she's got to come to terms with what here, as far as resentment or unforgiveness or baggage, am I dealing with? And when Jack does X, Y, or Z, which I would like to know what these things are that you are doing to cause this kind of a reaction, when that's happening, why is it that you're being brought back to this particular frame of mind? Like, to say that you don't value your wife, that is a major accusation.
Mhm.
To say that you don't value your children, that is a major accusation. In the same context, to say you're just telling me something to shut me up is a major accusation, because there is a lack of authentic trust there. Because that means that she believes you're manipulating her with your words. Am I off on that?
No, but again, I see it the other way around. That is also a way for someone else to manipulate you because they know it's a wound for you if you are trying to fix something and they keep bringing up you always, this is what you do, this is how you handle it. There's no proof, even though you believe that you're doing good, that you're doing better, that you're fixing things. It's a way to manipulate somebody and keep them pinned, so to say, in an old frame of mind. It's a form of control. So it varies on, have you guys really worked through the resentment? And if you have, what are you paying for that is not yours to pay for?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are you
No,
still paying for the past?
I'm agreeing with you. So it comes down to those two things. And then it comes down to, if you don't believe I value you, what am I not doing right? And go through your list, because I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. These are the things that you've said. These are the things that I've done. So what's missing? What am I not doing? What mark am I not hitting? Because now it's up to you to basically unveil everything and say, okay, ball's in your court. I've done all of these things. And you're telling me I'm not. So what's missing? What are you not telling me? What am I not doing? Because it's a silent expectation as far as I'm concerned, because now I'm aiming for something and I don't even know what the hell I'm aiming for.
Yeah.
How does somebody win at a game that they don't know the rules? It's not fair.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's true. And if you are asking your spouse, what are your needs, and your spouse can't articulate it, or is like, you should know my needs, red flag, problem.
I call bullshit.
And so, if your spouse, and that's not directed at this Jack and Jill,
No,
that's
that's
in
in
general.
general. That's in general. Is it difficult to articulate sometimes? Yes. Do your needs change? So sometimes you have to take a step back and think, maybe I don't need this right now. Maybe I need more of that right now. Yes, absolutely. We all go through things in life where your needs shift. Your love languages won't necessarily change, but they might shift gears. One may no longer be one may be three. You have to know those things, but you also have to be willing to have the conversation
Yeah.
about those things and not just brush the other person off and say, I don't know, or you should just know what I need. I cannot read your mind. I don't want to read your mind. Based on the conversations that we're seeing laid out before us, you do not want to read the other person's mind. I want explicit instructions. What do you want me to do? What are your needs? And the second question is followed up with, what does it look like? Because quality time to me is not quality time to you.
Yeah, I would say here, I'd never want us to get into the mindset that we're here as like an indentured servant, that life's aim is about making sure that you're pleased and happy. That's not our goal.
That's not what we mean by worship your spouse.
Yeah, that's not what we're aiming at. But since you guys are married and you want a thriving relationship, there are things that you both agree to do for one another, because you're meeting a certain need that your spouse has that only you can meet. So it's important to really get an understanding of if you are telling me that I'm not valuing you, then help me understand what valuing you looks like. And because I make a mistake in something, does that negate all the good? And let me say this. I'll use an example with you and I. And I don't know if I can use a concrete example, but I can use a partial example. For our marriage, um you correct me, you give me your own version, but for me, I'm going to say we're, as far as satisfaction goes, as far as we're at, I'm going to say we're high 80s, low 90s most of the time. Give me your opinion.
True.
Um, so when it gets to a certain point where you have some issues that may be reoccurring or some frustrations in your relationship, and you start to hone in, like the better your relationship gets, the smaller the gap to 100 gets, if you will. So at a certain point, I've had to take a step back on some of the things that you really frustrate me about. Um, and I have to look at it and go, am I setting this relationship up to say that no matter what you do, it's not going to be good enough for me? Like, is it? I've had to take a step back and go, am I setting unrealistic expectations for my wife? I mean, look at the body of everything that is so good. I mean, um, fun, creativity, intimacy, just generally, spending time together, family, future. There's those things that are great. There's a few areas where I struggle with you. Okay. Phone, money, we're doing what we can to work through those things. But if it gets to a point where the only thing that's going to be acceptable for you to meet my needs is perfection, that's unrealistic for you. That's unrealistic for me. So you have to be able, as the person putting this out there, you have to be able to take a step back and say, okay, let me evaluate my relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What's good? What's great? What needs to get better? But if I hone in on this one thing, now, if the one thing is you're cheating on me over and over again, that's a big thing and that's a problem. And that has to get resolved.
You wouldn't be living here. That's where that would go.
Well, I would say the same.
Exactly. That's a non-negotiable right there.
But I come back to that to say, what are you doing to cause this reaction from your wife? I'm not saying it in an accusatory manner. What I'm saying is, email me and let me know what causes this reaction so I can get some greater context. Because I do believe it's very important for you as a married couple to talk to each other and say, these are my needs. So when you do this, it fills my needs bucket, fills my love tank, and you spell it out. Conversely, when that's not happening, you talk about it. One thing that's big for me is feeling like I'm being considered. Like, have the consideration or the decency to consider me in certain things and communicate that. Why? I don't know. It makes me feel like I matter. It just makes me feel like I'm important. If you're doing things that don't elicit that response from me, and then I say, hey, would you at least consider help me, whatever, and you're like, okay, well, what does that look like for you? And I say, okay, well, when you do this, it makes me feel this way, and I appreciate it. If you do that, and then I come back to you and say, or we get in an argument, and I automatically go back to, you don't consider me, where's the disconnect? The disconnect is with me, because obviously I'm holding on to something, or I'm setting an expectation of what? Perfection.
But you're deflecting it and you're putting it on the other person. If you're holding on to something and an argument comes around and you say, "See, you always do."
Yep.
First of all, that's on you. If you've already set up and said, "When you do this, I feel this," and your partner or your spouse starts doing those things intentionally to make you feel like you need to be, you matter, or you're important, or whatever it is, and then you get into an argument and you pull it back and you say, "See, it always goes back to this. You did it for a little while and then you went back to this." That's a you problem,
That
because what you're doing is you're saying you did it, but it's not good enough. Okay. Then we go back to the second question. Help me understand, what does this look like? Because if I did what you asked me to do and it's not good enough, what am I not doing? I hit every point. And you said I did good, but now that you're mad at me, I suck. It's not good enough. I missed the mark. That's a you thing. That's a person, to me, that's you trying to keep, you're deflecting what you're feeling onto somebody else and you're making them the person responsible and accountable for how you feel. I am not responsible for your feelings. Am I responsible to own up if I do something to hurt them? Absolutely.
mm-hmm.
Am I responsible to own up and apologize if I do something that hurts you? Absolutely. But if I have done those things and we have moved on and you continue to harbor those things and throw it back at me, I am no longer responsible for those feelings. I have done my side of that to repair and reconcile. If you have chosen not to accept and you have chosen to not forgive, that is a you problem. True or false?
No, it is. It is. And I'm just kind of reflecting on that. There are a few times where I've been at my wit's end with you, just to the point of like, I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm ready to just, and I'm not saying walk away from our marriage, but I'll just talk about money. Like, how many times has the budget been wrecked in the past? And finally I get to the point where I feel like I am hopeless. And it's like, now I have to be irrational. If this happens again, it's over. I'm not doing this anymore. If nothing ever gets paid again, I don't care. I'll cut my nose off to spite my face. It'll be all your fault. Blah, blah, blah. Like, when you get to the point of being hopeless, you can be irrational.
Mm-hmm.
I know, because I've been there. So I really want to be able to bring this to something, because we need a step here to find out what's missing. Something is missing. What's the something that's missing?
That's for her to answer.
Yeah, of course. Of course, she has to answer that. So, Jack, that's what, when you guys sit and you talk, when you go over your book, we need to know from your wife's perspective, unless you're leaving stuff out of the story, which I don't believe you are. We need to know what's missing, because one step forward and two steps back, or 5 steps forward and 3 steps back, is there's a disconnect somewhere in the system. Someone is holding someone else responsible for the past and not letting it go. That's what it sounds like to me, with my limited knowledge of the situation, although I have more than limited knowledge. When you forgive one another, and then you can see that your spouse is trying, like, if I can see that you are trying, just going back to the money situation, if I can see that you are trying and you still don't meet the mark, I feel good that you're trying. And I can say, hey, thank you. We didn't hit the budget this time, but you did a great job here, and I appreciate that you're working hard to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if, let's say, If it's not getting better each month, but it's getting worse, then I can understand getting mad and saying, okay, we've taken 2 steps back here. But if your spouse, with the right intention, is doing the work to the best of his or her ability to make the change and to meet the need, that has to count for something. And if it doesn't, to me, it has to be a projection from the other spouse. So what is the other spouse doing? What is she in this situation doing things to make you feel valuable? Or she do it? What are your needs, Jack? And is she sewing into those? Is she meeting those intentionally? Because is it just one-sided here? Because it does it feel that way to you, that it's just one-sided?
Yes and no, because this particular Jack would probably say yes, she is meeting my needs without, because he doesn't want to stir the pot.
Okay, so we need to know that too,
I
Jack.
have a feeling that he is not coming forth with complete accuracy in what he says on his side of things towards her, because he doesn't want to step in it. He doesn't want to step in it. If he was to point things out right now with the you always and you never, blah blah blah, all he's going to do is feed into that. And knowing him the way that we do, I don't think he's telling her. I think he's holding back. I think he's keeping it kind of close to the vest and just trying to appease what he can on her side until things smooth over enough that he feels safe enough to say something. I don't think he has a soft place to land.
Give me a little extra on the microphone there, if you don't mind.
I don't think that he has a soft place to land. I think that he is doing what he can, but I don't think he wants to rock the boat. I think he's scared to rock the boat.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's true, Jack, if that's true, email us back and let us know after you hear this. We've kind of been all over the map with it, but we're kind of trying to just get down to the bottom of how can this be?
We need to have a conversation with both, or an email from her with her side of things, if that's even possible, because it's really hard to reconcile two people when you only have one side of the story.
Yeah.
I kind of know where he's going with it, because we've talked to him a few times. We've done the counseling and whatnot before, but I need to know where she's at. I have a funny feeling that there's more to this than what we're getting. And I'm not saying that he's keeping information. I'm saying that maybe we don't know everything that's going on with her, and I can't give you sound advice without knowing the full story.
Yeah, we need a little bit more in this case. But let me give you some props after we've punched you a lot. Let me give you some props. The props would be this, for sure, that you guys are still working it out in the name of loving your family and wanting to improve.
That's the biggest accomplishment you can give yourself, or the biggest achievement right now, is you haven't quit. You're still trying.
And you're still using the mechanisms. You've got a book. You guys are reading the book together. You're discussing the book together. Now, we know in times past that you had done some things in order to protect your wife, and it had the opposite effect. Nothing physical, nothing like that. It's just, it was a family situation. You were trying to step in and stand up for her, and it kind of backfired. Now, has that been reconciled? Because to me, it sounds like it just has not. But if I'm going to give you some homework, so kudos, there's 2 things you deserve the kudos on, and for reaching out and for still listening. I think you have the tools that we've given you. I think, like Jeanne and I, sometimes those particular tools get left at home because we know the tools. We've created some of the processes, and sometimes we just don't use the tools.
Like our daughter this afternoon. Why won't the drill work? There's no battery in the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I pulled the tool out. I just didn't turn it on.
Yeah. So when we look at the tools that we've given you in the past, and like, you can go, if you're new to the program, you can go all the way through the 300 plus episodes and we have things on communication. Matter of fact, by the time you're hearing this, we're going to have the 5 greatest pieces of advice for marriage. It's going to be out. You're going to know it. So this might very well help you. But for us to be able to help you in this situation, and I've got to get your feedback via email so we understand if this has helped you at all or if we have further complicated the situation. But in my opinion, the number one thing that you need to do, and honey, you can say what you want if it's different, and if it is, it is. But the number one thing you got to do is when you have a discussion, it's important for you to identify hers and yours. And what am I gonna say, or how am I gonna phrase it? It is hidden resentment and unforgiveness. Unforgiveness. Now, 1 and 1A. Here's a big deal for what's 1A. Why I call it 1A is because you have to look at the baggage. She needs to know, and you need to know what it is that you've done and you guys have reconciled together, and what is the past, the baggage of the past that's unresolved, but it's getting projected on you. Like, because it feels familiar, you're automatically getting this reaction. That to me is a big deal. I've had to go through that. Jeannie's had to go through that. You've got to resolve, is this something from my past? Is this a hurt or a wound from the past? And because you're doing something unintentionally, but it feels familiar, now I'm holding you accountable for what's always happened to me. Because that's a big deal. Okay. And then number 2, excuse me. Come on, cute dog. Number 2 in this homework is going to be write down what makes your wife feel valuable.
Specifically, what does it look like to her? What are her words and what it looks like? What does she want? What does she need? If it's, for example, for me, when we go out into crowds, I no longer have to lean into Quincy or try to tell him that I'm uncomfortable. It's now just an automatic. He guides me with his hand on my back, or he reaches back and holds my hand. Those things make me feel important because he recognizes and understands my anxiety. I don't have to verbalize anymore that I'm feeling anxious and I need you to navigate a crowd. Does it happen on occasion? Yes. We got into one recently and we were walking out and I just looked up at him and said, I don't like the crowd. And immediately Quincy just stepped into place and took over. It's not necessarily something that makes me feel like I'm more important than everybody else, but it makes me feel like he values the fact that I have a fear and an anxiety that he can help take charge of. So those it may not be the same for her, but it's just an example of what does it look like? I need you to take charge of the situation when I'm at this level because I can't process through it in the moment. That's what it looks like.
Well, she's saying that just by the words that he's using, one of her needs is to feel like she has value to him.
But what does that look like? What makes you feel valued?
Yeah,
what is it? Does she need accolades? Does she need I have a friend who, for her to feel like you value her, you can't just say, I appreciate what you do. She needs specifics. She needs to know that something that she did specifically made you feel appreciative. I appreciate that you took the kids to this, or I appreciate that you got dinner done early for me. She needs those specifics because to her, it's an act of service, but for her, the affirmations need to be specific or it's not valued. It's just a blanket statement and it doesn't feel genuine to her.
Sure. And then here's a thought that has just come to me. And maybe Jack is doing the things to make her feel valuable.
Maybe she doesn't feel valued by herself.
And that's another avenue. And then there's the idea that maybe it's not being reciprocated to him. So he does stop doing it. And then it causes a problem.
That's fair.
Because that can happen. And I wrestle with that plenty now.
See, now that you mentioned that, that makes me think. is there something that she's wanted to do or felt like she needed to do? Like for me, for example, um, I needed to finish my books. I needed to get my books out. And if the longer it took me to do it, the more of a failure I felt like, because I just wasn't, it just doesn't feel like I'm getting the recognition for the stuff that I've done. The amount of work, the literal blood, sweat, and tears that go into this.
Blood?
Oh, well, that's how I pay for my editor. I donate blood.
Oh, that's a fair
But anyway,
point.
it was a big deal for me, and it's still something that I'm struggling with because other people may not see the value in what I do, but so I don't necessarily feel like I'm as important or that I've made my mark just yet. But is there something maybe that she's doing? Maybe it was her schooling, maybe it was the job that she was getting into. I know she has a pretty important job. Does she feel like she's made her mark? Does she feel like what she's done puts value to her? If she doesn't, you are fighting a losing battle because she has to reconcile that within herself.
Yeah.
And that we don't, like I said, we don't know all sides of things, but if you for yourself do not feel that you are valued as a person, if you don't feel like um, you're important or you made your mark or that other people see you for what you see as your goal for what you want to be, those can wreak havoc on a marriage simply because I'm now projecting to you to make me feel those things and you have no clue what you're fighting against.
Yeah. That's tough for me. Like I'm not like at the height of into intellectualism, as you can tell, because I don't know the word to use. But there is a certain part of it where you as a human being, you need to know what your motivation and your intentions are, and you need to be healthy on the inside. Because if you're unhealthy in that area, whatever your spouse tries to do from an external standpoint is only going to be temporary.
I would suggest, since you guys are doing books together and that seems to be helping, there is a book that Quincy and I have purchased over the last year. I don't know how far you've gotten into it. Worthy from Jamie Kern Lima.
I've gotten nowhere in that book yet.
From a female perspective, it will benefit your wife. She is a believer, so there is some scriptural structure to it. But just an open suggestion, if you guys are working through books and it's something that seems to help you two to communicate, I would suggest picking that one up. It's meant for both men and women, but because she is a female entrepreneur and she went through some things.
Yeah, she did.
She went through some things. It might be worth looking at or seeing if she would be interested in reading it. I think it might be beneficial if personal value is a struggle.
Yeah, and here's another thing. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. My daughter Gracie went through a pretty ugly relationship, and she has a big heart. She has a really big heart, and just things didn't work out in that relationship. But I have this book that I'll throw up now by Dr. John DeBach. It's called Your Apology Sucks. I know y'all are currently reading a book about how to fight, but Gracie read me the first few chapters the other day. And the more I listened to it, first of all, I thanked her. I said, "Hey, thank you for reading me this book because I want to read it. It's been difficult for me to get to it, which I should have read it by now because we did the interview, like a month ago. But irregardless, what he's teaching you here is, and it sounds a little bit like what Jack is talking about. It teaches you how to apologize in such a way where it's like you're not just telling the person enough to be quiet. You're telling the person that you actually feel, the pain that you've caused and you want to reconcile it so that once it's reconciled, it goes where it's supposed to go, which is in the past. And then you're not trying to resurrect that constantly. So you see the screen, you see it up there on the screen, Your Apology Sucks by Dr. John DeBach. And I would recommend both to Jack, for maybe him to get a couple copies for him and Jill, and then you, the listener, getting a copy of it and checking out his podcast, because I think it's great. It is a great podcast. He's very down to earth, very straightforward. He doesn't mince a lot of words, but he speaks in great plain English about what it is. Let's see. I'm just going to read a little bit from the introduction real quick. Never done this before, but doing it today. Oh, if Gracie saw me doing this with a book, she would trip. But it's
your wife is having a moment over here.
Oh,
too,
good.
But
I love making
okay.
you have moments. All right, introduction. Writing a book about apologies might seem like a twisted form of masochism, but here we are. My name is Dr. John DeBach, and I've spent over a decade untangling the messes couples make when they bungle their apologies. Spoiler alert, it's more common than you'd think. My partner in this literary adventure is my wife, Michelle. She's a psychologist with over 15 years of experience counseling people. Though she rather wisely avoids couples counseling like the plague, instead, she focuses on individuals, which keeps her sane and, quite frankly, keeps our marriage intact. So they both don't do marriage counseling. While I'm the one, while I'm the one dishing out advice in the pages that follow, Michelle's fingerprints are all over this book. She's been my editor, co-writer, and the voice of reason whispering in my ear, usually while we're decompressing in the hot tub or hiding from our 4 kids. Her guidance has been golden advice that helped me better serve my patients, making sure I show up with my head on straight and my stress levels in check. Now, why would you care about this book? Simple. Apologies are the glue that can either hold your relationship together or let it crumble into a million pieces. Most people think an apology is just saying, I'm sorry. Wrong. An apology is a finely tuned instrument, and if you play it right, it can work wonders. Play it wrong, and it can be nails on a chalkboard. And I mean, that's just simple, just in the introduction, to say you can be apologizing with the best intentions, just like you can be trying to meet your wife's needs or your husband's needs with the best of intentions. But like we've said before, it's not what you say, it's what your spouse hears you saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to be able to speak the same language, speak the language that your spouse hears. And that can sound like you've got to do a bunch of work, and it can be cumbersome and ugly, and why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? But in all reality, you're a part of the problem that got here. You're a part of the problem that got you guys to where you are. So you can complain about this crap, or you can be a part of the solution. And if you haven't seen the episode with myself and Dr. John DeBach, go listen to it. Go watch it. It's great. It took less than 10 minutes, and I was a fan. I didn't know what to expect. I hadn't checked him out before. But this guy's work may truly be able to help you, Jack. All you Jacks out there. All you Jills. And maybe Jeannie and I should read it together, because maybe we got some stuff going on, that it would help us. I don't know. I know reading it is going to help me help you better. But that's the point where I would say we kind of bring it down to those basically 3 or 4 situations that we talked about. Get to the bottom if there's hidden resentment. Jack, are you holding some things back because you don't want to hurt your wife, or you're afraid you're going to hurt your wife, and you don't want to rock the boat? Is that what's going on? Because I could see that. I'm not condemning you to that sentence, but I could see that you would suffer on behalf of your wife because
Absolutely.
you care about her so much. And if that's happening, then you're doing yourself and herself a disservice, because I'm telling you, it's so different of a connection when you're not harboring those hurt feelings. So that's 1A. Um, and here's 1A. Have you guys identified what the baggage is from the past? Like, are you still dealing with that? And you need to come to terms with that. And then number 2, I want you as an exercise to write down what makes your wife feel valuable, because obviously if she says you're not doing that, do you know what actions to take? Because I'm really big on this. I'm really big on, okay, if this is something you need, give me the playbook. I don't want to guess. Tell me what you want me to do. I'm going to do that intentionally. And then once I get in the habit of doing that because I want to meet your needs, I'll take that and get creative later. But right now, I want to do what it is that is meeting your needs. I want you to feel a certain way. I want our relationship to feed you. And I want you to want to feed me, because I believe that's healthy. It's 2 power sources feeding into each other. That matters. And then, we just something else we got to know. That's 3 things. So the 4th thing would be, are you holding back? Are you not being honest with her? And then I guess that 5th thing would be, maybe just keep it at the 4 things. I don't want to get too extravagant, but we've got some feedback to get. Yeah, because let's just leave it there. Because I could keep on going and going, but I don't want to. I want to leave it there in hopes that this is enough direction.
It's a start. That's what you need to give as a start.
I'm confident that you have the tools and you know how to use them. But I don't know if it's you do them until you feel frustrated that she's not meeting your needs, and then you act out on purpose, and then we have a cycle. That's the part I was not going to say, but I went ahead and just said it. Are you intentionally doing better? And then you get to a point where you're so hurt that she's not reciprocating these feelings that you stop doing these things on purpose, and it causes a problem. Because that could be it too. And remember, listener, Jack, all listeners, remember that we're coming from a place of love and we're talking this out amongst ourselves. I've read the email, but then I'm just now reading the email to Jeannie and getting her feedback. And then we're openly discussing these. So I'm not condemning you or coming down on you. It's important for us to be able to have this open dialogue to get you thinking. And then we want to hear from you. All right, honey. Anything else?
No, I think we covered it all. He's probably gonna say, okay. I think we've given him enough to start with. We need to.
Yeah, Jack, I need to hear from you once you get this. Call me, text me, email me, and let me know the feedback. Let us know if we're anywhere near the landing zone or we're completely off. That'll help us help you. And for the listeners out there, send us your information. Send us an email, Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com, and allow us to help you. These things I can also take these into our panel discussions or give them to the guests so that we can help you. It is very important to me. It is in my heart to affect you in such a way, in such a positive manner, that you start to grow, you start to develop, you start to change, and that will change your family. And once your family gets changed, it's going to start to change the culture around you in a positive way. And that is deeply, deeply important to me. So tell me what we can do to help you. Go to quincymoran.com/apparel and check out our clothes. Go rock the swag, wear it to the gym, wear it out on a walk, wear it to church, wherever you go. Wear it and start to get the word out. Help us grow the platform. Like it, share it. I wish there was something I could do to rhyme it. Rate it, review it. That's all there is to it. I did it. And final thoughts, final words.
Nope, I'm good.
Nope, I'm good. All right. That's Jeannie Moran. I'm Quincy Moran. And this is Man versus Marriage, the podcast.